Welcome to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride. And today we're talking about the new hero card that's just been announced from the Shadow in the East Deluxe expansion box, which is the precursor to the Vengeance of Mordor cycle.
The brand new cycle. It's so exciting, isn't it, Grant?
It is indeed. The hero, you may be wondering, is the 3 cost, 2 willpower, 2 attack power, 2 defense point, 2 defense power, 3 hit points, Smeagol, who has the Gollum trait.
Smeagol.
Yes,
the Gollum trait. Right.
Yes. And it cannot have attachments, and at setup, you shuffle 2 copies of the Stinker into the encounter deck, and then has response after you travel to a location. You can raise your threat by 1 to draw 1 card. So, David, what are your thoughts on Smeagol?
Well, for anybody who's listened to the show for any amount of time, or maybe some of the older shows, I guess recently I haven't really focused on this, but when we've talked about heroes, what do I love about heroes?
Low cost.
Low threat cost. And that 3 is shining up there like a beacon to me. So that tells me that there's something crazy going on with this in terms of changing the meta and the mechanics of the game. And I believe that this is, well, first of all, let's get some of the basics out of the way. That stat line, pretty good. Hit points, fine. But for 3 threat cost to get a 2/2/2/3, what are we talking about? So there is a downside, though, right? And so make sure you can correct me if I get it wrong, but if you play if you play Smeagol, during setup, you have to take 2 copies of a card that goes into the encounter deck called Stinker. Okay, and Stinker is a card that has Gollum immediately attack you. Let me pull it up and see if I can. So it says, when
Stinker says,
go ahead.
It's a Surge Treachery, which has, when revealed, Gollum makes an immediate attack. If no attack was made this way, discard all tokens from Smeagol and flip him to his Gollum side.
So this brings up a super interesting dynamic that Gollum can enter play from Smeagol. And so this is the first time we see a 2-sided hero. Okay, or a hero with a second side where you have Smeagol, the hero, on one side, and then on the other side is a Gollum enemy, and that's wild.
It is. What I would also like to point out is the Stinker also has a nasty shadow effect. Raise your threat by 2, by 4 if Gollum is engaged with you. Shuffle Stinker back into the encounter deck.
Yeah, and I mean, Stinker is... I guess you can't talk about this card, about the Smeagol hero, without talking about Stinker.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about the card first, because it just seems so crazy low threat that there's just so many things you can do with it. And then we can, I guess it doesn't matter, but so Stinker, because it allows you to flip, and then all of a sudden I think one of the things that you have to do is when Gollum when Smeagol flips to Gollum, I think that you have to lose all the resources on Smeagol's. So if Smeagol is your sole lower hero, you could lose a ton of resources. Depending on how you're doing it. Now, Gollum also, I'm going to keep confusing this. Smeagol also has the text that says he cannot have attachments. It doesn't mean he's immune to player card effects. It just means that he can't have attachments, so he can't use resource acceleration. You can't on him. You can't put Steward of Gondor on him. You can't put any of the songs on him to help him resource smooth. So he's severely limited in that way. But we also have another hero that can't have attachments that you seem to like a lot, right? Beorn hero can't have attachments.
I've used Beorn hero, but I prefer Grim Beorn the Old.
Right.
I also like the ally version of Beorn. But yes, Beorn the hero cannot have attachments. But for that, you get a whopping 10 hit points.
You do, because he's a crazy defender.
He's a giant ass bear.
He's a huge bear. This guy is not a huge bear. This Smeagol is definitely a small target.
I would have liked to see another trait on Smeagol. Maybe
Hobbit.
No, because he wasn't actually a hobbit. He was
part of the river folk, I guess. He
was one of the river folk that probably has the same heritage as hobbits.
Yeah.
But they had a fondness for water, where generally hobbits don't. They try to stay on land as much as possible.
Right.
I would have probably expand on that sort of thing. But who knows? Maybe in the future, it's something that we'll see.
Well, yeah. We just got the release article, so we're really recording this, a couple hours after the release article came. It's and the funny thing is that trying not to spoil anything, seeing a double-sided Smeagol Gollum card is not something new. There's a bunch of them throughout the sagas. When you're playing the saga, Smeagol flips to Gollum and things like that. So this idea is not new for Gollum, but it's so unique to have a hero and then lose your hero, but then you're able to regain him, similar to how the old mechanic works in the saga, that as soon as you defeat him, you flip him back over to Smeagol. And so I think that it's crazy to the mechanics. I guess what I'm trying to say is the mechanics of this hero coming in and out of play could be really interesting, and makes me wonder how Strider would work with this guy. Strider, if you only have two heroes, because he's no longer a hero when he's on the Gollum side, right?
Yeah.
So
he's classed as an enemy while he's on the other side. He doesn't have the hero word, so
right.
But whilst we're on the subject of talking about Gollum, he's got the same stat line as Smeagol, but with a slight difference. He's immune to non-Gollum cards. He engages the first player, but when Gollum is defeated, flip him back to Smeagol and return him to his owner's control exhausted. So
you really lose him. You're losing him for at least a turn if he flips, if you draw the stinker card.
I like the fact that he doesn't die when you defeat Gollum.
Right. You beat him back into submission.
Yeah.
You're okay, get back here. And the other thing about Stinkers doesn't say you can't be canceled. You can cancel that Stinker card if you want to.
Yeah.
So, it's easily managed, I think, unless there's something else that we don't see, obviously. The Gollum side of this card has immune to non-Gollum card effects. So my guess is that there may be, either in this expansion or other expansions, Gollum card effects that could come out. But maybe not, because the Gollum card is really what Stinker is. Stinker has the card effect, right? Has the Gollum. Yeah. So
I would have thought that there would be other traits that relate to Gollum. We've seen the tantrums in Return to Mirkwood. So I
Ugh,
think,
those like raise your threat by 8 sort of thing.
yeah. So I can't see them
Ugh.
leaving just Gollum created cards. I think
Well, it's
if
interesting because there's a lot of cards that target specific heroes. So like, or at least important heroes. Like, there's the sword that was broken, and the ring of Barahir for Aragorn, and there's
I would,
the
I would
Rivendell
think
blade and things like that target specific things. So it's possible that there could be a whole raft of cards that come out that target specific things.
I would think there'd be probably a couple of player card events that would target Gollum coming out. So maybe a way to flip them back into submission before you have to go to combat.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen though, because imagine
I
because
don't
you can
know
cancel the stinker, like you can test a
Yeah.
will it right away, so that's real easy to do.
But how do you? But I'm just thinking hypothetically here
Mm-hmm.
that obviously I can't see the encounter decks running any cards that would say Gollum or like have the Gollum trait in particular, other than possibly like the sagas where you had to use Gollum
Right.
or like the Tantrum cards from Return to Mirkwood. They
Mm-hmm.
don't actually have the Gollum trait, but if they were to revamp them, I could possibly see them get them if they thought people were going to be playing with Smeagol.
Right.
But, the only so I can't see them putting many Gollum traded cards into the encounter decks themselves. So unless they're giving player cards with the Gollum trait, I'm not sure. It's something I'll be looking out for.
Right. It's an interesting thing. The other thing that we were talking about off air before we get into maybe some of the nitty gritty that I didn't talk to you about off air is I'm wondering what the mechanic is that they're going to have to figure out for if you're going to choose to play Smeagol in some of these older quests where Gollum is actually like if you're going to take Smeagol as a hero through your through the Hobbit cycle, right, or the Hobbit saga. Smeagol, it has the unique name Smeagol on the card, which is different than the enemy that comes in the third scenario. I forget the actual name of it. It's after Dungeons Deep and Caverns Deep. But anyways, that Riddles in the Dark scenario has a Gollum enemy that makes attacks against you and stuff like that. But Smeagol is not Gollum, so it only becomes that when it flips over. Smeagol only becomes Gollum when he flips over. So there's got to be some sort of resolution there about how you're gonna play the Smeagol hero with some of the older stuff. And I'm sure Caleb is a lot smarter than we are when it comes to determining that maybe you can't play Smeagol in those.
I've got no doubt that Caleb's smarter in the game's design than what we are.
Right.
He's probably already 10 steps ahead of us at this point.
At least. So, having said that, here's some of the nitty gritty that I wanted to run past you. Okay? So, Merland, Pippin,
yes,
Smeagol. What's your starting threat? Merland, Pippin.
2, 5, there's 7, and Merland is 7. That's 14 threat.
3 plus 8 plus 6.
Right, and then...
So that's 9, 17 minus 3 is 14. Okay?
Yeah, which is what I said.
Right? Like, that is 3 heroes well into secrecy.
Yeah, but then you've got to remember that with that, you have no actual... you've got all of those, all those three heroes are pretty much questers. So you've got to think.
Oh yeah, totally get that. And Pippin allows you to draw a card, and so does, Smeagol. Smeagol allows you to draw a card too. You raise your threat, but the the point is that with a 14 starting threat, you don't even have to like engage enemies right away, and you're drawing cards left and right to be able to get what you need out there. You bring out Spirit Glorfindel, then replace Pippin with Spirit Glorfindel.
Well, I was actually thinking maybe replace Merlond with Tom Cotton, so at least you've got a defender on the table. So if you do get Gollum flipped over within the first couple of rounds, you have a defender.
I think the I guess where I was trying to go is what's the lowest possible threat that you can get at still having 3 heroes on the board. So if you have Spirit Glorfindel, which is 5, and Smeagol, which is 3, that's 8, and Merlond -2, 6, so 8 and 6. I guess that's back to 14, right?
14. Yep.
So I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a lineup that's, I just can't imagine that there's a line, and there's even a little bit of elf synergy there. Like that could thematically be a great lineup if you have Spirit Glorfindel and Merlond. Because you have some elves looking for Smeagol, and then the Smeagol finds the way for them. I don't know.
It would definitely be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, totally. And that response is wild on Smeagol. Those responses after you travel to a location, raise your threat by 1 to draw a card. So I guess that's why, that's a super powerful, to be able to draw cards kind of at will. That's great. So are you going to run this guy in a Haldan deck? Where you're doing location control and you're doing the new location control where you're putting attachments on locations, and you want to explore a location every round and put stuff on locations. Elfstone, is Elfstone looking good on in this deck with Smeagol?
I would say possibly. It's definitely one that I've been using more of with the release of Haldan. Obviously, I like Elfstone in general, but I've been using it a lot more now since the release of Haldan. But that constant increase, well, it's not a constant increase if you don't want it. It's a response.
It's a response, so you don't have to take it.
Yeah. But it kind of reminds me of Spirit Glorfindel, where you exhaust him to quest, you raise your threat. That's kind of the mindset that puts me in. But I like the fact that it's a response, so you don't actually have to do it.
Right.
Now, with a Haldan deck, you've already got an insane amount of draw, especially when you've drawn through an active location and say you've got 6 attachments on that location and you draw 6 cards. What's the point of raising your threat to draw another card? Now,
so is Smeagol a splash hero? Like, is this a splash hero to get some lore?
I would say yes. I wouldn't say he's innate to doing a mono lore deck, although you could do that. But definitely for his stat line, because obviously he's got that healing. Maybe if you're running, say, Elrond and you need an extra low hero, he would be a good choice because of the fact that he's got that innate lore, and you can, if you need to draw a card, you've got it there.
So how much card draw is in Tactics? So there's Foe Hammer and what's the other one? There's, I guess the point is 8 cycles in, we don't have a ton of card draw in Tactics, right? So is this guy a splash hero in tactics, which is traditionally a high threat sphere, so that you can keep your threat manageable at the beginning, and then you get access to a couple of like Ethelos or Lembas or something.
I would personally say yes, but you've got Forehammer, Legolas, and then you've got Knife Work,
Mm-hmm.
and then if you want, you could say Mighty Warrior.
Right. I mean,
which gives the response after you play a Mighty Warrior, you can draw one card.
mm-hmm.
It's not ideal for card draw. Whereas Legolas is constant card draw after he destroys an enemy, and then obviously Forehammer, when you after you destroy an enemy, exhaust a weapon card and then draw 3 cards.
Right, and I'm not an expert deck builder by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe the more I'm talking about how to actually take advantage of Smeagol is either to, because I think you're right. Probably, I mean, you could probably build a solid mono lore deck, but it'd probably take a lot of doing. You know, or maybe it is a splash hero in tactics, or
maybe it's splash hero in leadership.
Why leadership?
Well, you've got a few cards that do card draw.
Mm-hmm.
But some of them are more expensive or more. You need a little bit more to go right to use them. So, like Valiant Sacrifice, after an ally leaves play, you get to draw 2 cards. Obviously, you've got.
So if you have Smeagol, you play Daron's Runes or something that's a little more easy for card draw.
I mean, you've got Campfire Tales, which is always a solid choice for each player to draw a card. But then things like King Under the Mountain or Unlikely Friendship, Rod of Steward, Lord of Marthond.
Well, you're not playing Lord of Marthond.
And so many other cards that would give your card draw have, like, Lord of Marthond is attached to a Gondor or Outlands hero, or Rod of the Stewards attached to a Gondor hero. They have such restrictions. So Smeagol, in that sense,
kind of opens up the lore sphere if you have like a 3 leadership cards that are.
Well, there is that.
3 leadership
there is
cards.
that. But even if you're just traveling to a location and you think, God, I just need one more card. For example, if someone's used an Enlarger Stargazer and you know what you've got coming, and it's just like, okay, I need that card, desperately need it. I'm going to I'll raise me threat by 1. There we go. I've got the card. There's a fiend.
Well, the other thing is, I guess it's after you travel to a location. I was going to say you could use the card draw and then discard some cards to Eowyn or something. Discard a card to Eowyn to boost but you can't do that because it's in the travel phases, obviously, after the staging step. So you can't do that. But
But
this guy though really gets the creative juices going with some of these crazy deck types, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something to think about. It'll be something I'll play around with once he actually comes into production, in the game itself.
Right. My thing is that, does the fact that he flips over and you have to add 2 cards to the encounter deck, is that a big enough deterrent to play a 3 threat hero? I know what my answer is.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it all depends on if you're running with multiple players, if you're happy, if you've got a solid way of dealing with the flip over of Gollum, of Smeagol, if you don't mind losing the resources. Yeah,
I mean, you could bring out a couple events using his resources, and then you're ready to go.
Well, that's exactly it. And I mean, there's nothing stopping you from not attacking Gollum. If you, for example, are running, as you said, off air, Strider in Stinker comes out, you flip over to Gollum. All right, well, I've got Strider here. If I take him back, I don't get the extra bonuses from Strider. Well, let's just leave Gollum there. He's only attacking for 2. I've got a defender in Treebeard or
Strider, barring any sort of crazy rulings from Caleb, Strider gives the attached hero +2 willpower.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. You put Strider on another hero, as soon as Smeagol flips to Gollum, Strider then becomes active, and that takes the place of all the willpower that you just lost.
Yeah.
So
but that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But then even when you go to like the combat phase, and you then, well, do I want Gollum back for the next turn? Well, Smeagol back for the next turn. I've got no low cards in hand. No, let's just leave them and just play it like that. If you've got a lot of low cost low cards, like of the Erebor Record Keeper, that costs 1 to put into play, you can just literally leave them unless you're needing the card draw or the access to the Law Sphere. But you're running Strider. There's no point of just it's just another way of getting 1 less hero out on the board.
Yeah, and I think that I think that the real danger is getting some sort of crazy shadow effect on Gollum. Like if he attacks, like to attack, you can defend almost with your eyes closed in this game. So it's not necessarily the attack that's going to do anything to you. It's really the shadow effect where, discard defending ally, or, defending ally gets -2 defense, and all of a sudden you're taking something undefended, and that's those are the things that end up being frustrating, and that's where I can see
this card frustrating people, because you'll get one out in which you'll flip over Gollum, and then during the combat phase you'll get another one that makes you raise your threat by 4. And then you have to pull that one back into the encounter there.
And the other thing about this is that in the early days of the game, the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, which, by the way, I'll say this when we do our Around the Community episode, but, the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, which was the first cycle, it seems like this, what's the name of this cycle? A Shadow in the East. The name of this cycle is A Shadow in the East, so it's like almost like a little bit of a call out to the first cycle there, and so I kind of like that. But those first cycles had really thick encounter decks. So if you're playing a Hunt for Gollum, and I know that thematically, and you're probably not going to put Smeagol into a Hunt for Gollum deck, but if you're going to play Hunt for right, found him, he's right here. No, but I guess what I'm saying is that when you have a 60-card encounter deck or a 50-card encounter deck, the chances of drawing a Smeagol card or a Stinker card to flip Gollum is very
high. Well,
very low. The later cycles, one of the things that Caleb and Matt did, and then later just Caleb, is they really made the encounter deck really small. So the chances of hitting on all the crazy combos and doing anything, even in a solo game, are so much greater. So putting Stinker in a 30-card encounter deck, like, you're probably going to draw one in that game. Yeah, you
imagine taking Smeagol to Dumbledore.
I want him captured.
How hard are you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, thematically, that's exactly what we want.
He's already been tortured by Sauron.
Right.
Do you really want to send him to Dumbledore to be tortured by the Nazgul? I suppose it'll be like a holiday for him.
Right. So I think that Smeagol, like, okay, so he can't have attachments. So let's attack that specific thing. What do you do to boost to make him a better hero then? If he can't have attachments, so we can't do any of the standard stuff. The first thing that I'm thinking of, and so this reminds me, so let me say where I'm going with this, is that I think that it reminds me of that episode about that we did with Dan Pogue, where we talked about Beorn and how he can't have attachments, but there's a whole slew of things that you can do to help him be better at what he does. And so the first thing that I'm thinking of is like Marksman of Lorien. When you bring the Marksman of Lorien, you pick an enemy and you reduce its defense by 2. That can soften up an enemy for Smeagol to hit. Although I don't know if I want to attack with just 2 attack, but I don't know. Is there anything that gives heroes all, like Frodo's intuition? That gives all heroes +1, so you can
you've
give.
Got likes of Elrond's Council if you're running a Noldor character. You've got.
So if you're doing the thing we referred to earlier, the Glorfindel, Spirit Glorfindel, and you bring out Elrond's Council, you can give him. That's something good for everybody, though. I'm wondering if there's like all heroes get +1 or +2, or like the Strider thing. I think is like the perfect management for this. They'll probably come up with some reason why that that you can't, because the hero is still considered to be in play and under your control or something.
You've got the free people.
Oh, the free people. This provides another card type for
card trade, yes.
For the free people that we haven't seen before, right? So the free people, you need to have 9 different traits on heroes. But typically when you're running that, you don't want to have just a hero with 1 trait. Typically you want to have like Elrond with 3 or something, but
in each character in play until the end of the phase, each character you control gets +1 willpower.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to think of cards that, what's that card that, I think it's leadership. It exhaust a character to ready another character. Those sorts of things, or exhaust a hero to ready a different hero. If Smeagol isn't doing anything for you, you can get action advantage in that deck because you could exhaust Smeagol to then ready your other hero, like for whatever. You get that gives you that action advantage there, and that's a great target for that. I can't remember. You can use
Grave Cairn.
Grave Cairn, what does that? I feel like I remember what that does.
After a character leaves play, add its attack power to another character's attack until the end of the phase.
Right, and that's a character leaving play. So, so something like if you sneak attack Gandalf in the into play, then you can have Smeagol get sneak attack. You can get Smeagol with a +4 attack, but that works for every hero or every, that's a target. That's a good play no matter what. I don't know if it's a good play, but it's a play no matter what, not specifically for Smeagol.
Inspiring Presence.
What does that do?
Action, the hero you control. Each hero with a lower threat cost than the chosen hero gets +2 defense until the end of the phase.
Every lower threat than the chosen hero?
Yep, so say, for example, you chose Gandalf with a 14 threat cost.
Mm-hmm.
Each hero with a lower cost than the chosen hero gets +2 defense until the end of the phase. Then the players as a group may spend 2 leadership resources to give a +2 attack to each hero with a lower threat cost than the chosen hero until the end of the phase.
See, that's
like a global buff.
Right. And so what's that card that readies, exhaust a hero to ready a hero? Like, that's one of those things that, like, Smeagol's always going to be good there. So if you're running that Smeagol, Merlond, Glorfindel deck, like, all of a sudden, that's an auto-include. Is that... Okay, back up. What is the card that you were just talking about? What was that card again?
Inspiring Presence.
Is that a leadership card?
No, that's actually a spirit card.
So Inspiring Presence, you could definitely use that to do some shenanigans with there, and then it would be, if you're using that lineup that I said, that means that it's Glorfindel is going to get +2 willpower and Smeagol. And so that means you're questing, Glorfindel has 3 and Smeagol has 2, so that gives them +2 for each of them. So that's
+2 defense. If you're running with another character that's got leadership, they could then potentially get +2 attack as well.
Right.
But the card you were talking about was Common Cause.
Common Cause, right.
Exhaust one hero you control, choose and ready a different hero.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know, even though he can't have attachments, there's a lot of
shenanigans you can do.
And this is where I think great deck builders separate themselves from, like me, is, they see cannot have attachments, and they're like, okay, now what can we do besides giving him attachments to give him buffs that make sense for where he is, and that's the thing. So that's where talking to Chris Stanford about Aristor, I go back to that episode all the time, because the way that he uses Aristor to grease the machine is phenomenal, because he just takes advantage of everything all the time. And Dan Poe, when he was talking about, well, he can't have attachments, but you can do things to boost him that don't require attachments. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I would have said that if you'd given the Smeagol the Hobbit trait, he'd be kind of overpowered.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cards that
boost
hobbits, and then hobbits already have low threat, and then to have this, I don't know, it would be pretty wild.
Yeah. But that does lead me into an interesting suggestion.
What's that?
What would you? Obviously, we're getting a lot of reverse cards these days. We're getting this reverse hero. We've had a lot of reverse allies /
What do you mean reverse?
Enemies. Well, obviously, Smeagol going into.
Do you mean double-sided, or do you mean things that are traditionally bad guys or good guys?
Double-sided.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing possibly Aragorn looked at like that, or perhaps Eowyn, or other characters that go by either different titles in the books that then come to be
not necessarily enemies, but they flip over and have a different set of conditions or something.
Yeah.
You could have a double-sided Aragorn that's spirit and then tactics, and then
well, not just that, maybe for example, having Aragorn as Aragorn on one side and then Strider on the other, as he was known by the people of Bree.
Right.
And yeah, to get to an alternate version, you had a card that says when you play this, you get that.
Right. And then, or you could have cards that cause them to flip, like encounter cards. It's like flip a hero. And then all of a sudden the encounter deck's screwing around with who you are. Okay, if you're Strider here, but you're something somewhere else. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting idea, that, because there's the designers, I think, are pretty staunchly against having dual sphere heroes like they do or dual sphere cards like they do in Magic, But this is a way to have two spheres without really doing two spheres.
I'm not really sure if having them two sphered, dual sphered, would work in deck building.
But it changed the meta of the game. I don't think that this card necessarily, like, the more I look at it, I'm not sure it changes the meta of the game, but I think it definitely changes. It definitely starts a different sort of.
It poses a new challenge to deck builders.
Yeah, I think it gives definitely a cost benefit analysis deck builder some reasons to pause. I think that this card gets included in a lot of. I think this card is going to get a lot of play.
He's definitely going to see a lot of at least deck testing by players. Whether he sees a lot of play like Spirit Glorfindel did back when he was released is yet to be seen. But
right,
what we see right now, I can definitely see him getting a lot of table time at the beginning. For people like, oh, yes, a 3-cost hero. Let's try him out.
Right, but maybe it's not going to be a thing because there's there's already low cost heroes out there. What's Pippin's stats? He's 6th threat, 2/1/2/2.
Yeah, something like that.
Or 2/0/2/2, something like that. Or, no, it's 2/1/1/2. That's what it. Right. Anyways, but the point is that 2/1/1/2 isn't that far off of 2/2/2/3, right? Like, so does the extra 3 threat cost make somebody want to, I don't know, like run Smeagol? I don't know. Unless there's going to be a rebirth in secrecy, of secrecy cards.
I can see that coming. I can see the secrecy coming. Because of the fact that all the cards lately have been pushing towards the more secrecy-focused decks, because a lot of the enemies have now had lower engagement costs to stop people running secrecy.
Right.
Well, not stop them running secrecy, but make it harder for people in secrecy to stay out of combat.
Mm-hmm.
It'll definitely be something to look at for future. I mean, like I say, I'll definitely be testing Gollum out at some point because I think he could pose to be either a great help or a great hindrance. We'll soon find out.
So one of the things that we didn't talk about that I want to make sure we talk about, since we're already doing a longer spoiler episode anyways, is what do you think about running this guy single player solo versus multiplayer? I think he's better multiplayer than he would be solo. I think he would be harder to fit into a solo deck unless you have a very specific secrecy theme that you're trying to run. Unless you're splashing into lore into tactics or something, or lore into leadership that has normally high. This guy in Gandalf, like that really levels the playing field out there. So I don't know.
I can see him working more in multiplayer decks because obviously with the encounter decks getting smaller and more dangerous with each passing cycle, and with the addition of those stinker cards that make you lose a hero, I think it's going to be more beneficial in multiplayer, so you've got someone to pick up the slack if you do lose your hero.
Right.
But at the same time, I can see the advantages of running him in, say, a solo deck for example, if you're running a low-cost deck where you're just trying to quest through, do willpower, and if you've got Strider there, you're not losing anything, but if you're keeping just pushing through the quest,
right,
it could come in handy. I mean, I don't know, I've not played them yet. I won't be playing them for a while. I'm not sure when this will be released. But
it says in the third quarter of 2019. So, here's what I think. So we're getting Mount Gundabad, which is the fifth cycle or the fifth AP in the Arid Mithrin cycle. That's coming out this week. So we're recording. It's April 2nd, and so that comes out on Thursday, on April 4th, and then it's usually 2 months to get the next AP after that. So then the Fate of the Wilderland, or the Fate of the Wilderlands, whichever one I forget, is that's going to come out in June, I think, 2 months. And then
we're probably looking about October.
Yeah, I would guess.
September, October.
Yeah, now Gen Con, which is the big US thing, that happens in August. That's not necessarily third quarter, but that fits the every 2 month thing. The other thing is Con of the Rings, not that they would purposely wait for Con of the Rings. Con of the Rings happens in October, and that happens right at the FFG play center, like game center. I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but wouldn't that be wild? Wouldn't the Men of the West, who's going to be on the show, by the way, wouldn't they be wild if they released this the Thursday before Con of the Rings? That would be crazy, because the three scenarios just seem really awesome too. But we're not talking about all that. We're just talking about Gollum now. But
yeah, but the art. Have you looked at the artwork on Gollum?
The artwork on Gollum or the artwork on Smeagol?
On Smeagol.
The artwork on Smeagol, I'm debating on whether I like it. I mean, he's got his brace of conies, and I don't know, like, what I like about it is the contrast between the bright, almost humanoid-looking Smeagol, and then when you flip it over, kind of the dark gray tones of Gollum. Like, that conflict, that, that the way they design those two pieces of art to work together, really, I love that.
Yeah, I agree. It shows the internal struggle between Gollum and Smeagol.
Yeah, if there's one thing that this game really knows how to do, it's really to take abstract things and put them in the game some way thematically. Like that abstract struggle that Smeagol had, that through the whole books, or movies, whichever one you can, like the artistry of that is hard to capture. And I think Peter Jackson did it really well in the movies, and then Fantasy Flight did it amazingly in the card art.
I think Peter Jackson did it well in the movies, especially especially given the conditions that they were under to create Smeagol/Gollum. The book did it perfectly, which is a testament to Tolkien's writing to show that schizophrenic personality disorder that was coursing through Smeagol/Gollum at any one point in time was phenomenal in itself. So to capture that wholly on just 2 images of card is amazing.
Yeah, it's a testament to how carefully thought out the designers really think about these things. He almost, like, the sun is shining in the Smeagol picture, there's rivers in the background, there's life, there's, greenery, the sun is shining on him, he looks kind of humanoid almost in his build, and then when you flip it over, he looks menacing, there's nothing living, it's all rock and deadly. So it's just amazing. So this is one of the reasons, and we'll get to the end of this here in a second, but this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do, when I originally thought about doing the podcast, is why I wanted to do a video podcast as opposed to an audio podcast, is so people can see the card when we do talk about these things that we're talking about. It just makes it easier to discuss. So is there more to what more do we have to say about, I guess, kind of the trio of cards of Smeagol, Stinker, and Gollum. What have we talked? What have we missed?
I don't think we've missed all that much, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think when if more cards are spoiled towards the upcoming deluxe box, we might get more insight into what's they've got planned for Smeagol / Gollum for this scenario as a whole.
Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be some events that surround, cards that are immune to, or not immune, but just can't have attachments. Like maybe that aren't, this event can only target, maybe not explicitly, but that are designed, kind of with Beorn and Smeagol in mind. Wouldn't that be? I think that future is looking good.
It's possible that's the way they are taking it. I mean, from speculation point of view, it's possible, but I can also see in a thematic way why Smeagol can't have attachments because of the fact that he's flipping over a Gollum, and that the way they've got it done is it flips over frequently, or at least that's the way I'm thinking that they've got it planned.
Yeah, but it's only going to flip over once or twice, unless Stinker says. Stinker doesn't say, or maybe it does. Does it say to shuffle it back into the deck?
It does when it's dealt as a shadow card, but not as a encounter card.
Right. And so, but
like I say,
that's you're gonna see Stinker at least once when you're playing this.
Yeah,
regardless whether you're playing, if you're playing solo where you're only revealing one card per staging step, you're gonna see it once probably.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
If you're playing multiple players, you've got more chance of pulling it out and cycling the encounter deck. So again,
right.
If
you're playing this multiplayer, maybe it's not the thing to do. Maybe you do want to play this one or two player, two player maybe, because you don't want to keep flipping a hero back and forth all the time because, you get it. Regardless, you're going to spend his resources first.
Yeah.
This guy is the guy that you're not going to want to have resources on.
Basically, you want to get them on and get them off as fast as possible.
I'm wondering how the healing works, too. Like, if he's got 2 damage, and then you draw Stinker, and then he flips over, I wonder if it stays.
Well, Stinker sees you get discard all tokens. So,
so you get good healing, then. So, maybe you can take advantage of that healing thing.
If no attack was made, discard all tokens from Smeagol and flip him to Gollum.
Right.
So I'm guessing that includes damage tokens.
Yeah, that's damage. Resource tokens and progress tokens.
Well, I don't know why you play progress tokens on Smeagol. But
don't doubt.
Day.
Right. Wait until the 7th quest of the 38th adventure pack cycle, whatever, like. But I don't know.
That's a dark place, David.
Yeah,
don't go there.
right. When I'm 60 and we're still doing this show, it's like, hello, Grant. Are you still just along for the ride?
It'll be like always
along for the ride. Anyways, well, should we move to ring this guy?
I personally don't want to ring him just yet until I've had a chance to play with him.
Yeah, you stole it right from me. Like, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's so wild that you just don't want to ring him right away.
I did it with Bilbo, and we did it with Gaffer Gamgee, but I don't think it's the right thing to do because we haven't been able to play test the gods.
Well, it's because it just, you can kind of see how Bilbo works, and you can kind of see how Gaffer Gamgee works.
Yeah,
but you can't really see how the Smeagol works until you really hit the table because it's such a different sort of game-changing
Agreed.
card. So I was going to say that that I normally give those cards a 5, the ones that I want to just see how they work. I feel like this card would be better than a 5, but maybe not, because he just may not hit. He just may not hit on all his cylinders, and it's like he just may be a pain in the neck. So I reserve the right to ring him.
I think when he comes out, we'll do a recap. We'll come back to Smeagol and actually do a more, well, maybe not a more intensive look at him. But
well, we'll just get right down to the brass tacks, is what we say in the United States. You know, we'll do a normal 15-minute long episode talking about all the things that work and don't work with him, and then we'll go from there.
And then it might be a few months, it might be a few years, depending on when.
Few years.
Hey, I'm planning for the long haul, mate. We've got to keep people interested.
Yeah, right. So tune in September of 2023 to watch us talk about Smeagol. Yeah. But yeah, this guy's gonna definitely. I think he changes the game a little bit when you use him. Like, I don't know how much, and that's the thing that I really need to see.
Well, at least he's still better than 2 cards: Brock Iron Fist and Bilbo Baggins.
Lore Bilbo. We have to make sure we say that. And so then.
Well, technically, Tactics Bilbo is on the boat, but he's not yet here. So he's technically not there yet.
Right. So, do we have any last thoughts about Stinker or Gollum, the encounter cards?
No, I'm happy enough with what I've seen. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Deluxe X, the Shadow in the East coming out. There's a lot of, there's a few spoiled cards that look interesting to have a look at, but I'm wondering if they're going to be getting. I wonder what they've got in store for the upcoming cycle, the Vengeance of Mordor.
It's just going to be exciting. We'll when we record our Around the Community episode, which still has the name Around the Community, we'll talk more about the cycle in general. So everybody stay tuned for that. That's coming out soon too, if it hasn't already, based on when we're recording and doing stuff. So, since we're reserving judgment on ringing this guy, let's I guess we'll end the show here and we'll call it a day, unless Grant, you have any last words about it.
No, Master, I think we're good.
Okay, everybody, so there it is, the spoiled Smeagol deep dive by Card Talk into
Don't hurt the precious.
Okay, everybody, have a good night. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.